musical involvement before the Pogues?
Before the Pogues, I was in a punk band called the Millwall Chainsaws. I was the lead singer. We were together about 2 years and did something like about 7 gigs in all that time. We weren't very good, really.
How extensive was your knowledge of traditional Irish music, which at that stage, or before the Pogues?
To be honest with you, it was actually pretty minimal. I mean, like, you had a certain amount of it in if you went into certain pubs in certain areas of northwest London. Into the Irish pubs, obviously, you would hear a bit, and I've actually heard more probably from just sitting around in Shane's flat and listening to the stuff that he had. But it wasn't really. I didn't really have that deep a knowledge of it myself.
Yeah, I think the Pogues began as the New Republicans. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that was just a kind of one-off thing. There was this club called Cabaret Futura in the West End of London, and Shane and this guy called Ollie Watts, who was actually the drummer in the Millwall Chainsaws, went up to the guy that ran the place and said, "Oh, we've got this band that do Irish rebel songs, and we want to, will you book us?" So the guy said, "Yeah." We didn't actually have any kind of a band at all, but we just kind of like got together and worked out about 8 or 9 songs and did the gig. That was me singing, Shane playing guitar, Ollie on drums, and this guy called Matt Jacobson, who was the bassist from the Millwall Chainsaws, on bass.
So it was just the one gig under that name?
Just the one gig, yeah. Right. And then I'm not quite sure of the time scan here, but I think it was something like about 18 months later, Jem Finer had sort of, he had taken this idea on board, the kind of like the Irish stuff, but doing it sort of, I guess, just doing it fast, giving it that kind of punky feel, And he'd just been mulling that over, and he kind of went back to Shane and said, "Look, this is a really good idea. We should do something with this," and that's kind of how the Pogues was born.
Yeah, the band was often labelled as that, coming together of traditional Irish music and punk. Did you yourself see it that way? Was that your blueprint for the band?
Yeah, I mean, I guess with hindsight, but I mean, there wasn't. I suppose that's what we were doing. It just seemed to work, when we started off with the New Republican thing, doing those rebel songs and doing them just with this kind of this punk attitude and just doing them fast and hard. It seemed to make sense, and so I suppose in a way the answer to that question is yeah.
I believe it was you that came up with the band name.
Yeah, we were again. It's up in Shane's place, and I think it's the usual thing, you get the band together and you think, oh, right, okay, so what are we going to call it? And it's, you just everybody just goes completely blank, and we were just thinking, and I don't know, it just, Pogue Mahone just seemed obvious because of what it means. Kiss my ass, and I just thought, yeah, that sort of sums up the band's attitude, and it worked,
I think I read that the original plan was for you and Shane to share vocal duties. Was that right?
That was right, yeah. At that time I couldn't really sing at all, so that one got shelved, and I kind of felt I had to do something, so that's when I started picking up the whistle.
You had a drumming background to begin with, didn't you?
Drumming background? No, yeah. I wouldn't put it that strongly. I used to hit myself on the head with a beer tray. Sorry, I mean, if that's a drumming background, then yes, for sure.
How did the beer tray thing how did that happen?
That's Shane's idea of a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, what can we get Spider to do, make him look a right twat, I know.
Was Shane's unreliability a cause for concern in the band right from the beginning, or was that something that sort of came with time?
It kind of got worse with time, I suppose is the best way to, I remember the first tour we did when we were supporting Elvis Costello, we all sort of we all met up and we drove round to pick up Shane from his place, and we just couldn't get him out of his flat, couldn't get him out of his bed, basically. As a consequence of which we ended up missing the ferry to Ireland, because we had to drive all the way from London to Holyhead, which is North Wales. And but yeah, it was, as time went on, it did get a little bit hairy.
How was he in the studio? Was it a different attitude there?
Not really, no. No, I mean, he's always been he's always been contrary, cantankerous old sod.
widespread of songwriting talent in the band. Was there any particular process you went through deciding on whose songs to use and which ones to leave out on each album?
In all honesty, when Shane was coming up with the goods, that was never a problem because we'd use Shane's because they were so good. I think the criteria that we used was what was best. Was what ended up on the records. It didn't matter really who had written it,
Yeah.
But as it worked out, it was the case usually that it was Shane's stuff that got on because it was Shane's stuff that was the best.
Now that the Pogues have been and gone, and you've got time to look back and reflect, what album do you look back on with the greatest sense of satisfaction?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. It'll be one of the first three. And at different times, and for different reasons, I pick a different one. I do really like the first one, Red Roses for me. I really like that very kind of raw sound that we had then. But I like the other two as well. And Hell's Ditch and Peace and Love. I mean, Hell's Ditch, I think there were some really good songs in that. But Shane wasn't in the best of conditions when we were recording that, and that could have been, I think, a much stronger album. And the last two, Peace and Love and Pogue Mahone, well, not Peace and Love, sorry, Waiting for Herb and Pogue Mahone. But it wasn't quite the same thing in those days.
How did the band...
Singing was good, though.
Yeah. How did the band get on with the music press, the music media?
How did we get on with them?
Yeah.
We never really had any problems with them, particularly. I mean, we used to get really good reviews and everything, so... And I mean, I think it's if you start worrying when you're getting bad reviews, if you start sort of bitching about that, well, I mean, you're in the wrong business, really.
Looking back, though, do you think there was perhaps at times too much of a media focus on the rebellious reputation of the band, not so much towards the music?
Yeah, there was. It used to. Sorry, just a sec. It used to piss us off a bit when people would kind of go on and on about the drinking and all that kind of stuff, and not really sort of. I mean, it was pretty obvious, I think, to anybody with half an ear that. We were coming up with some really, really strong songs. I mean, Shane, there's no doubt about it, was a very, very talented songwriter, and I think that side of it did possibly get overlooked sometimes. But at the same time, I mean, that was a very strong part of the band as well. That whole sort of thing, just don't give a fuck, just get up there and do whatever,
Would there be any one great misconception?
What I'm trying to say is that, I mean, if the media did kind of concentrate on the sort of drinking and everything, we didn't maybe do ourselves any favours in trying to detract away from that.
Yeah, fair comment. Is there any one great misconception about the Pogues that tends to come up in the media that you'd like to put straight?
Well, probably. I mean, it still seems to be the case that a lot of people think that we were all Irish, whereas in fact we weren't. I mean, in the original lineup of the band, when Cot O'Riordan was in the band, there was only Shane and Cot were the only Irish there, and when we were like an 8-piece, and then we had Phil Chevron and Terry Woods. There was never any more than 4 Irish people in the band. I mean, that's not a problem. It's just that it's sometimes, I mean, you get the. I don't know. I feel that people are thinking, oh, they're just these guys pretending to be Irish, but they're not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Can you pinpoint a particular moment in time where, for you personally, it's at any stage that it stopped being enjoyable, being part of the Pogues?
There was a lot of times around about the time that Shane was leaving when it was, to be honest with you, very hard work. But at the same time, I wasn't exactly sort of, I don't know, being the most sensible of people. I think it's probably the best way to put it, without incriminating myself too much. It was, I think, towards the end, when the time came to split up, it was, I think everybody knew that it had really run its course by then,
Yeah.
There was just that sense that this is over and it's not going any further, and it's best to sort of put a stop to it now.
Was there
before it does become like a real drag and everybody does actually really start hating the fact that they're there,
Was there a specific band meeting as such to decide to let Shane go?
Things came to a head in Japan. We'd had a really difficult tour of Australia, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And and it just became apparent that he really didn't want to do it, and that was leading him to sort of behave in such a way that he wasn't able to do it. And it, we had to do what we did what we had to do, basically.
How did he take the news?
I think he was relieved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think he had been sort of itching to get away for quite some time, and he just didn't know how to sort of like come out and say it.
So in hindsight, you probably did him a favour.
Hindsight's a terrible thing, It can, yes, probably we did, but I mean, we'll never know,
Yeah.
If we hadn't done that, then who knows what might have happened? It's just, who can say?
Who can say? Yeah. Getting Joe Strummer in to replace Shane's vocals, was that ever meant to be a long-term arrangement, or was it?
No, that was only ever meant to be a short-term thing, just to kind of tide us over, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about yourself stepping into the upfront role? Was there any tentativeness on your part there?
Well, there was. I mean, I had done it before when Shane hadn't turned up, or had been out injured. But yeah, it was a bit daunting. But like I say, I had done it before, so it wasn't something that I didn't feel that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
I felt I couldn't do whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm. I believe you came across quite a bit of negative feedback, particularly in areas such as Germany after Shane was let go.
Joe used to get a bit of barracking. I never did. There was the thing in Germany where there was our German fan club, who were quite a noisy bunch, who fell out with us over some imagined slight. But quite honestly, they were, and they kind of like defected en masse to Shane, if you like. But this is going to really sound like sour grapes, but actually there's not very many of those people. I mean, we went back to Germany a number of times without Shane, and it was fine. Yeah, there's about 20 of them. The friends of Shane, they're called. He has actually got more friends than that, but they think that they're his friends.
A sense of a source of annoyance there that some of the long-term fans of the band may dismiss those last few years without Shane?
Not really, no, because I can quite understand why they might do that. I mean, I know that to a lot of people, Shane was the band, or certainly that the band lost its focus, and when Shane left. So I do really see that. And I feel those last two albums could, again, they could have been better, possibly. I don't know. But no, I mean, like I say, I can understand why people felt that way.
But having done it now, you're glad you continued on for those last few years?
Definitely, yeah.
Tell us about the Wisemen.
Well, the Wisemen have mutated into the Vendettas, and we're kind of like just going around looking for a deal at the moment, really. It sounds really, really good.
I did hear there was a name change on the card, so that has happened, has it?
That has happened, yeah.
Right. So, in the beginning, how did that all come together?
I just wanted to. I wanted to do something. I had a vague idea in my mind, and the way that the sounds worked out, actually, it's exceeded my expectations. We've got this really good sort of punchy, hard sound with like accordions and stuff like that in it, but it's very, very electric. Quite sort of, I don't know. What does it sound like? It sounds like the Dubliners meet Slipknot. Maybe not.
Would this band be a musical direction perhaps the Pogues may have gone had they stayed together?
It's an alternative thing. The Vendettas is it's much more punky in that sort of, it's much more electric. So it's like an alternative way for the Pogues that the Pogues could have gone.
Yeah, sure. Have you had to put up with any of the inevitable comparisons?
If we haven't got Terry Woods in. Sorry, say again.
Have you had to put up with any of the inevitable comparisons from the media and such between the bands?
No, we haven't actually yet reached a stage where that kind of thing would happen. I mean, like what we've had so far is people shouting out for Pogue songs at gigs, but I mean they're bound to do that,
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And just to wind up, Spider, how would you like to see the Pogues best remembered?
How would I like to see the Pogues best remembered? God. The best band in the world,
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
There'd be many that would agree too.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks again for your time, Spider.
Okay, John.
Much appreciated. Best of luck with the record deal. I'm sure something will come your way. And
okay, well, hopefully we'll see you over there.
Yeah, you're always welcome down here. There's an audience waiting.
Right, okay.
Thanks, Spider.
Take care. Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.